Hello everyone, I am that 3D guy, and before starting this video, I'd request you to please subscribe to this channel and press the bell notification icon so that you do not miss any future updates. And I would also like to wish you a happy new year and hope this year goes well for you and not as bad as for how it was for most of the people. And let's see what we had done in the previous year, right? So obviously I had taken a 2 days break, and I had something to show you. As I said that my main forte is modeling, but as a final chapter to this series, I decided to create something interesting, maybe a 30-second ad kind of a thing where I can show you maybe some renders that can come out after you model something like this as precise as possible, right? So in those renders, I won't be showing something which is like maybe focused more on rendering. It will be focused on how your render is going to look if your model is, right? So as I said that I did not play a lot with the rendering and stuff, but if your model is good, then your renders are bound to come out good because the reflections are going to come out good, right? So obviously there's a lot of effort that goes into rendering, maybe the lighting and everything. If that's not right, you won't get your renders correct. But the main thing to focus here is also, if your model is not right, then your renders are not going to come out. So it's both ways, right? So in the previous lessons from the first to the fifth part, right, we saw about major things like setting up the canvas, then maybe the basic things like maybe setting up the planes and starting with the basic surfaces. Then we also saw about making the camera module. We also learned about the array tool. So we learned a lot of tools during these five series, right, like the 5-part series. Now the sixth part is going to be something which is more into details, right? So this won't be the part where I have done something. It will be something I think which you will be doing, right? So I'll show you how I made it, because the thing is, if I keep doing all these things again and again, I went through most of the tricky parts which could have been in the model. It's only going to be something which is like something easier for you now, right? So you know all these tools, you know how these tools work. So I've just used those tools and those tricks to create those details, like the buttons, right? The buttons, maybe something like different things like yeah, the buttons, the camera module and stuff like that. So I've worked on those, maybe the charging port and something like that. So I've worked on all those things myself. I'll be showing you about those in this video, right? So the main purpose of this video is that I'll be showing you the details, how I made it and how my attempt was in making those. I'll also tell you about my feeling about how the whole model has turned out to be and everything. So let's begin with the video. So as I said in the previous lesson, we had learned about the array tool. So we were quite successful with our model. So I'll switch with the second model now. I'll switch with the second model which I had done, like the completed model, the finished model. So I go into my stages. So I've imported two of them, right? So I go into my stages, and as you can see, I have the final file over here set up. I go into the final file and I have everything properly layered, right? I have everything properly layered and I set it up like this, right? So if you can see, I have made very quick things, right? Very quick things. I have done the Apple logo over here. If you can see, it is even filleted, right? It's even filleted because I wanted everything. So the main thing is, the more you add details, right? And the details are going to be nothing but fillets, like small fillets, like maybe 2 mm fillet or 1 mm fillet or maybe 0.05 mm fillets, which I have used here. And the main purpose of doing that is because if you use fillets, if you soften your surfaces a bit, as I said in the first video, like the first one where I was explaining about the curves and stuff like that, right? So I was specifically targeting on if all the objects in this world have some kind of a maybe a roundness to them, right? It's not sharp. It's never going to be sharp. So those things you need to keep in mind. And here it's the fillet of merely, I think around, I don't have the history on right now, or maybe I have. Okay, I don't have the history on for this. But if I had the history on, I would have showed you that these fillets are literally 0.05 mm or 0.075 mm. But when the light falls on this, it literally shines on those small parts and reveals the details of the models, which look pretty good in the renders, right? So these things, these kind of tiny details which I have worked on, if you can see over here as well. I've worked on these small details. I just traced out the path, right? I quickly took the CV over here, like the CV curve over here. It's over here in curves, yeah. CV curve over here. And what I did was I quickly went through. If I show you here quickly, maybe if over here, and yeah, so if I show you somewhere something like this over here, I just went through over like this, right? I just went over through like this, like just setting up. If you can see over here, you can clearly see how I am just setting up the curves, right? I'm not even like maybe paying a lot of attention on the spans. The major thing with the cutouts like these are, like the logos and stuff are, it's bound to have spans, right? It's going to have spans because anyways we won't be creating like very rigid surfaces out of it. It's just going to be planes and stuff. So we don't care about the spans a lot because anyways, as I told you in the previous one, that once you projecting, it's going to have spans, right? Once you project a curve on a surface, it's going to have spans anyways. So you just create a very free form kind of a feel with it. Just project on it. I trimmed out the back part of the iPhone over here. If you can see, I just trimmed out the back part of it over here and made the Apple logo out of it and just brought it a bit out. So that's how you play with it as well. Obviously, it's not going to be like that when you work on the production model. It's going to be a bit more refined. But yeah, this is a very good place to start, right? So this is the logo which I talked about. Okay. Then this thing. As you can see over here on the buttons, right? So all these buttons, it took me around maybe 5 to 10 minutes per button, which is quite long, I would say. But okay, but if you want to do something very precisely, sometimes you know how difficult it is to work with Alias. Sometimes it's a bit kind of tricky to work with it. So all in all, it took me around maybe 45 minutes to work around all these details and stuff, which is quite reasonable as well, because the problem with Alias is you put those commands and sometimes it doesn't register properly, right? So you have to fillet it manually, because even the smallest of the smallest fillets, when you are doing something which is very small, the buttons of the fillets on the button, you cannot even feel it. It's that small. And you see how the display tolerance is getting all over the place here. So that is what we have to keep in mind as well. We'll just make it accurate. Yeah, and we'll just reduce it to 0.001. Yeah, I think it should look good now. And as you can see, it's taking a bit of time to compute, but yeah, here we have something which is very clean. So as you can see, the display tolerances are literally in triple like 0.001 or 0.001. So, and it's accurately tessellated, right? So that's the major thing which we need to keep in mind, that we are going up to literally 3 decimal points to just achieve something like this. So this is nothing but a simple fillet, right? This is just a simple fillet. If you can see, if you can notice the curvature of this. So what I did was I just took a circle over here. If I have the curves, I don't know if I have the curves. Do I have the curves? Okay, I don't have the curves for this maybe. Or maybe I have. Okay, no, I don't have the curves for this right now. But okay, what I did was over here, I just took a circle over here, right? The circles which I showed you in the previous one. If you haven't checked it out, the link is going to be in the description box, so do check that out as well. So I created a circle over here, right? I created a circle over here. Then I made a plane outside, like I made a line out of it, like a line out of it like this. I made a line out of it like this, and I made another circle over here, right? I just trimmed this part from the major surface. From this surface, I just trimmed it out, right? Maybe divide it out maybe. And I just brought it a bit outside. Maybe shorten the length a bit, because once you divide it, it's going to be into 2 big surfaces, which I didn't need, right? So I'll just show it to you what I mean by this. Maybe I think I'll be able to show you somewhere over here, right? And I'll just move this part over here. Yeah, okay. So we have something like this, where we have something kind of a replication of this, right? I just untrim this part. Okay, I have something like this. What I did was I just divided this. So I'll just surface. Okay, it's there in trim, and I just trim this one and divide. So I have something like this. If you notice, if I have 2 surfaces now, which I'll just bring it out, right? So I have something like this, which is approximately like this. Yeah. So if you can see over here, I have something like this. Now the only thing I need to do is, which I did was, I untrimmed this part, and I thought it was very big. It was very big, which I didn't need, right? I didn't need this. So what I do is I just extend these parts, right? I just extend these parts, and it is quite a good thing to do. Obviously, no one is going to notice, no one is going to check, but it's a good thing to do because you don't need that kind of a surface, right? You don't need that much of a surface, so it's better to keep it short, simple, right? So that's always going to come handy once you start modeling like complex things and your surface is like, you don't need that kind of a surface. So I just need this much surface, right? I just need this much surface, and then I'm just going to trim this out, like maybe keep this okay, I have something like this which is approximately like this, and if I just untrim this, I have the whole surface, but it is still small, right? So that's how you are going to work, maybe try to keep it as much as possible, like how much ever the surface you require, just use it. That using big surfaces for no reason is also not going to make sense for such a small button, right? So that's the thing. So these buttons were created like this was created similarly, right? This was created similarly, if you can notice, it was created in a similar fashion, right? And if you see, I have grouped all these pieces together, so whichever color I wanted to give, right, in the final rendering engine, I used a keyshot for that. So for that, if you want to use keyshot or maybe any other software, you need to have proper layers over here. You can see clearly how I've used each and every layer for a proper way to work things around, right? Like I've used front glass, so if I just select pick, and I use front glass, I use pick objects. You see how the front glass is being highlighted? So these things you need to keep in mind, because it's going to be very important for you to follow these things, like follow all these things, and maybe even working around, right, later on when you are applying materials, it's going to be an easier job for you. Then small details like these, right, I worked on these small details as well, where you can clearly see there's just a small piece over here. Obviously I didn't give a very small fillet to this. I don't think the software was registering it maybe, and I thought okay, I was just done with it, so I just left it like that. But obviously you have the time, you can do that as well. So maybe, but if it's not very recognizable, it's just a thin piece of paper. It's like a paper like structure right over here, which is like a thin piece of sheet. I just wanted to give it a maybe 0.001 mm of thickness maybe in this scenario, and it worked like that. So I just kept it like this, and it was just nothing, it was just this surface which was duplicated out, right? This was just duplicated out and trimmed on both the sides. Yeah, I don't know if I just untrim, it's gonna work, it's going to show something. Okay, no, because I think I might have just put the exact measurement and it was just a extended version wherever I created. I just used this part and I duplicated it on this side as well. I duplicated it at the bottom as well, right? For you can be as precise as you want. This is just a training lesson, right? For me as well, for you as well, for the viewers and for me as well, because making something easy does not always turn out to be great, right? Because the most complicated problems you face is while modeling easy things, right? Because in easy things, it's very difficult to bring out the beauty of it, right? Like how the crown was over here. You see how the crown was over here? We made it in the first lesson. And if this crown wouldn't have come out nice, right? It wouldn't have been like something which I would have been able to flaunt maybe. Because obviously this is something which is the major highlight of this. And if this thing doesn't work, okay, for a big object, there are many surfaces, people are going to see a lot of things. And that comes like something which is, okay, maybe this didn't work out. This is something which can be like a show off kind of a thing, where you see a lot of automotive companies maybe try to show off different angles of their cars. There might be some angle which might be a bit like, okay, this isn't looking good, but that doesn't matter because it's a very big object, it's a very big automotive object, and it's okay. So sometimes you need to play with those things as well. But with such a small thing, it's always important to keep all the surfaces clean, everything clean, right? The same with the charging port. I created the charging port as well. I created these holes as well. For these holes, I didn't majorly focus on the surface quality. I just put the cylinders inside. I just trimmed it out. Because anyways, these are not going to be something which is going to be manufactured. Also, one thing I need to tell you is that not always, which is all the things which are going to be manufactured may or may not have spans, right? So it is not like if it's a class A model, it might not have spans or something like that. Obviously, spanless surfaces are always in demand, obviously, but that doesn't mean that you cannot have a maybe minimum 1 or 2 spans, right? So it depends on the company. It depends on the company where you will be, where you work, and something. Most of them guide you through the process if it's 1 span is okay, or maybe because every company has a different milling machine, right? They have their different milling techniques. So depending on that, they'll tell you, okay, maybe this won't work. This is the thing which you are gonna work. This is the tolerance which we are gonna work. For now, I just put like maybe 6 cylinders over here. Just trimmed it out, filleted the inside and the outside part, right? So this is how I did it. So any problems you have, you can just put it in the comment section as well, or you can mail me at that 3dguy23@gmail.com as well. Obviously, if I would have showed you all these making and stuff like that, it would have become very difficult for me to finish the series, right? Because obviously I've shown you the major parts of how the things work, how the different details are. I've shown you the major tools which come handy, right? Like I made like 6 cylinders over here, but what you can do is you can use an array tool, right? Which I showed you in the previous lesson. So that is how you'll be using all the tools, right? I showed you the fillet tool. So G2 curvature, I just use the fillet tool, use this, and that's done. So I made it into something like this, right? Obviously, people go a lot more deeper. Like if you want to make the interior of it, right? If you want to make the whole interior board and stuff like that, if you want to animate those things as well, it's a very good thing where you can just show the exploded view and stuff like that. So obviously we didn't focus on all those things right now, because I just wanted to cover the outer body of it, because that's one of the most tricky part. Because something like this where 2 parts are joining together as a crown, it's one of the trickiest parts in Alias. Obviously not the trickiest, but one of the. And also one more thing is that the surfaces are quite at right angles, right? So that is why it was a bit easy for us to manipulate those. But as soon as the surfaces come at a different angle and there are like 3 to 4 blends coming together, it becomes more difficult. We'll also check those in the future lessons, right? Because one thing which I like to do is maybe focus on all those things as well. Then we spoke about the camera module, which I think I showed you in the previous lesson. After that, I also built this part, right? I also built this part. If you can see over here, I built this part, which is just like a glass over here. If you can see, I think this is okay. This is not the glass. Maybe this part is the glass. This part was the glass, and this part was the, yeah. So this part was the glass. The back panel was the glass panel, and this part was the same material, which was this one, the side one. Maybe the anodized metal. Maybe, yeah. So this was the main metal over here, and over here as well. So that was one more thing which I worked on, and this was nothing but just a duplicate of this part which I had done, right? If you see over here, this is just a duplicate of this part. And I think I was working on this previously, where I wasn't able to maybe bring the fillets out because it was crashing on my computer. So I thought of maybe I'll do it separately and I'll show it to you once it's done. I think I had to manually fillet all those things, but it's okay. You just figure out how to do things. There's no one way of doing things in Alias, right? Then Then this was also one cutout which I had done. So these also have small fillets over here. Yeah. So this is just one panel which I had just duplicated in the front. I just gave it a bit of thickness over here. Yeah, and I just trimmed it out over here in the center like this. Maybe this is where the front part of the phone is, right? Like the small mesh over here that comes in the phone. So it was over for that I had left some area. If I disable this, you can clearly see over here I've also made the place for the small camera over here and the mesh over here, right? So I think, yeah, I've separated this as a group as well, right? And the same thing over here. So this one was the main panel, right? The main screen which I thought I'll be making. I gave it a little bit of thickness as well. If you want, you can give it. If you don't, it doesn't matter, because we have the glass in the front, right? So this was like the glass panel. Maybe you can call it a glass panel, or maybe you can even call it like a scratch guard or something like that, right? So all these small things, they just give your renders a bit of depth, right? They give your renders a bit of depth. They'll show you, okay, maybe something which is more deep, right? It's more deep because there are a lot of elements involved. So it's not just one thing which you'll be looking at it. you'll be looking at the reflection, right? So if you put a glass on top of it, it's going to reflect light in a certain way, which is going to look really good. So all these things. Then even these small buttons over here, I just duplicated it. I think I went through this part, right? Yeah. Okay. So I went through this part, and over here also what I did was I just made a small flash over here. I made a small flash over here. If you can see, I just made a small place for the flash. I also made a cap for this. This is going to be a glass object, so it's going to be like a flash that's going to come out of it. So all these things I completed after the next lesson. So it wasn't a lot of things which I did, but they still take time. They're time consuming, right? Once your main surfaces are ready, the main thing, the next parts are not that difficult. As long as, okay, maybe you have couple of blends here and there which you'll have to brainstorm or something like that. But if your main surface is, you know how it's going to work, right? So building the patch layout, which we'll be discussing in the coming lessons as well. How you decide on building, how you make the patches, right? So in this one, I knew how to work around this, right? I knew how to work around this. I didn't have to maybe make patches for this. But when I'm starting with any automotive project, right? When I'm starting with any automotive project, or I'm starting with something which is a bit more complicated, I usually, what I do is I start making patches, right? I take the blueprints out, or maybe on the iPad, or maybe on the paper, right? I just sketch it out. I just sketch the patch layouts out. I just maybe color them out in different ways, right? Like if I show you over here, there's one way of showing you how many patches have been used, and this is the tool, right? So this, okay, okay. So this tool shows you the patch layout, and this, if you are able to build it properly, right? If you are able to build all these patches properly, that means the lesser the patches you have, the better the result is going to be. And if you are able to sketch it out first, right? If you are able to sketch it out first, you'll be in a much better shape, because you'll build that understanding. Okay, this is how I am going to build it, because not all your surfaces are going to be like four squared kind of a thing over here, right? Like we were lucky to have something like this because it's an iPhone, so all our surfaces were mostly squarish, right? Like if we see over here, it's a square. If we see over here, it's like it's built using a square tool. So all those things we need to keep in mind, right? So what else do we have over here? So yeah, I did something like that, and that is the reason why I think maybe I also lost maybe a couple of days in between. So hope it did not affect you if someone is following me, or maybe someone is following the process of working. So if there might be a break in flow, right? So I hope that didn't affect you. And I also have a short video at the end of this part, where I've just, as I discussed, I've worked on the advertisement of this, and it was quite a fun project for me as well, because it took me a couple of maybe days to render it out. It was a bit tricky for me as well, because I was using more of Premiere Pro and stuff like that. So I thought of making a tutorial on that as well. I thought maybe, okay, I'll start something where I'll be able to explain that, but I wasn't very confident with it. I would say that modeling is where I'm more confident at. But obviously, as we go through together, it's not only about me telling you how to work on things, but also working together, right? So maybe if you have any doubts regarding rendering, or maybe regarding modeling, right? So as I said, that I have a lot of friends who can help me out as well. So if you have any doubts, you can just post it in the comments box below, or again mail me at that 3dguy23@gmail.com, and let me know how you feel about the video, and about the video which I'm going to post as well, right? So do check that out as well, and have a nice day.